Gaming is not just a hobby, it can sometimes work as a tool to cope with my mental health. So today I will share 10 great games to play on the Steam Deck in 2025, which involves the theme of depression and healing, and hopefully they will help cope with your depression like how they did to me. Let's check it out. So let's start out with Sea of Solitude. Sea of Solitude, in this game you get to swim, sail, and jump across various rooftops as you navigate this fictional depiction of Berlin, Germany, which is flooded. In this game, you get to play as Kay, who unfortunately morphed into a monster due to her negative emotions, because when you have negative emotions, they kinda just metaphorically becomes something that is extremely nasty. But anyways, in this game, it is your goal to help her to navigate through her depression and to find healing and closure in the past mistakes that she made in her life. As you go about exploring various areas, your goal is to basically follow the light to clear the corruption, which will transform a stormy area with dark clouds and all that filled with dangerous creatures to become a sunny area full of life. As you go about in the game, you will also learn about Kay and her dysfunctional family, as well as the struggles and all that. So yeah, if you're looking for a game that is beautiful and where there's a lot of exploring and where it speaks to you in many different ways, especially touching in the topics of depression and healing and whatnot, definitely check out Sea of Solitude on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Figment. Figment is a fun, jolly action-adventure game with a lot of puzzles to solve, cool enemies to fight, as well as bosses to encounter. In this game, you get to play as Dusty, who got his journal stolen by a mysterious creature, and where you, as Dusty, accompanying with your friend Piper, who is a bird, goes on this mission to basically retrieve his journal, which was stolen. Now, at first, the mission for the journey was to basically fetch his journal back, but then the journey became much more meaningful. As I progress and play as Dusty, I get to witness Dusty's growth, because at first in the beginning, he sounded like a really grumpy, insecure individual due to some traumatic events in the game, but then later on, as he goes about the journey, he builds courage and breaks from his past despair and where he can just face life head on. Now, though, as you can see in the game, it looks really light-hearted and it feels like a cartoon-like game for kids, but even as me as an adult, it really speaks to me in many different ways. It helps me build my courage, build my confidence as I learn the different lessons in Figment, as well as the illustrations as I go about in the various locations in Figment, as well as deal with the different enemies, the different locations, and the different enemies that I face. They all have names which resemble negative things in life, and where you play as Dusty, basically you are helping him face those different negativities in life and where he can have a positive aspect in life. So yeah, if you are looking for a game which is jolly and fun and also touches on the topics of mental health and healing, definitely check out Figment on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Creatures of Ava. Creatures of Ava shares the theme of how you can always make a difference despite everything seeming to be hopeless and at great loss. In this game, you get to play as Vic, who's on a planet called, you know it, Ava. In this game, you get to clear the land from corruption known as the Withering, as well as in the meantime tame various creatures from the Withering, in which clears the corruption in their minds and helps them to no longer be foes but friends to you. Now, once you clear different various creatures, the corruption in their minds, you can play your flute to basically guide them to the nearest rescue robot station in order to transport them to your ship with the goal of preserving the various species. Also, each animal that you restore them to their normal state where they become your friend, they all have their own strengths and weaknesses where they can overcome certain obstacles to get into certain areas where you normally cannot do on your own. And what's cool about that is you actually am able to get into a mode where you'll be able to play as the specific animal and control the actual animal as if it was you, and where you overcome the certain obstacle and be able to access certain areas that you cannot access before. So that's something that is really cool, as well as there are also a lot of side quests as well as main quests that are also intriguing as well, and where as you progress in the story, you will also be able to earn certain tools and certain abilities where they will help you also access certain areas that you normally cannot do before. So yeah, it is just really fun, really cool, as well as really engaging. Now, another thing that's really cool about Creatures of Ava is that since you are on the mission to save the different animals from the corruption, you get to document each and every one of those creatures. No matter if it is the ones that you already tamed or those that are still in the wild, you can do so by taking out your in-game camera and capturing a shot of the various animals. And once you capture a shot of the various animals, there will be details which will be recorded about the specific type of animal that you captured. It is a really cool game with vibrant colors. There are also really cute characters and whatnot. So yeah, if all that sounds really interesting to you, if you love these type of adventure games where there are no bloodshed and where you feel like you are making a difference, definitely check out Creatures of Ava on the Steam Deck. Now up next is the Forest Quartet. This game is about a band who announced a final concert due to paying their last respects for their lead singer who unfortunately recently passes away. However, due to their grief and mental health instability, they could not get themselves to perform at the final concert. So you, playing as Nina, who is the lead singer spirit, it is your job to guide each and every one of the band members out of their grief and mental health problems and motivate them to gather up their courage to pay the last respects of the band by performing one last time. Now, the thing about the Forest Quartet as far as the gameplay goes is that there are 3 different acts, and where each act resembles the specific insecurity in which a specific member is dealing with. So this game is very much in the side of where the visuals and the analogies, the way they present it, really resembles what is going on in the specific character of the game. The visuals speak to the story and the struggles and whatnot. So the Forest Quartet, I will say this, is that there is no bloodshed, there's no that kind of thing. It is really quite relaxing, where the major selling point are, number 1, the meaning of the game, where you just really feel for the specific characters, the struggles and whatnot. But the second thing in which the Forest Quartet has for its main selling point is the puzzles, which oftentimes involve connecting those various lights which generate energy, and where this also further illustrates Nina as a spirit being a light and brightening up all the band members, cognitive realm. So yeah, that is just something that is just really emotional as well as really laid back at the same time. So yeah, if you're looking for an emotional game that's relaxing and chill, and at the same time the characters speaks to you in many different ways, definitely check out the Forest Quartet on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Spiritfarer. In Spiritfarer, you play as Stella, who is accompanied with her cat Daffodil, in which it is your job to obtain and take care of the various spirit friends by helping to send their souls to the afterlife. Now in this game, you build a boat and where you operate as an Airbnb on the boat, and where all these different spirit friends in which you obtain, they will start living on the boat, basically taking this voyage to the place where you will send them off into the afterlife. And throughout the journey, you get to gather various resources as you explore the world, upgrade your boat, which provides various buffs to the boat, which makes the boat become more effective and be able to withstand more terrains or help it to be more efficient in order for it to be able to travel faster and much better. As well as what really stands out in Spiritfarer are the various quests from the spirit where you have to do to make them feel peaceful and at home, and where as you take on those different quests from the various spirits, you get to learn those emotional backstories of the different spirits. So it is just really touching as well as really emotional. But yeah, if all this sounds really good to you, definitely check out Spiritfarer on the Steam Deck. Now up next is I Am Setsuna. I Am Setsuna is a top-down turn-based RPG style game in which you get to play as Ender, the guardian of Setsuna, who is a woman chosen as the a sacrifice in hopes to appease the monsters to prevent them from attacking your village. Throughout the game, you'll meet very interesting characters which will become your party member and assist you along the way, as well as you get to meet those different NPCs who gives out those various dialogues which brings about life in the civilization as it currently stands, as well as you get to engage in various monster fights with various strengths and weaknesses, and buy and upgrade your gear, as well as adding accessories to it to buff your party members, like how those RPG games work. What I really love about I'm Setsuna, on top of these attributes, is you get to also engage in exclusive side quests which are pertained to particular party members. And what I also really feel I'm Setsuna shines is there are also moments in the game where the characters touch heavily on the topics of depression, healing, as well as breakthrough. So that is something to really take note of if you are somebody who loves turn-based JRPG games where there are a whole bunch of enemies to fight, as well as where it motivates you to improve in life and be happy. Definitely check out I Am Setsuna on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Kena Bridge of the Spirit. Kena Bridge of the Spirit is a beautiful game where there is a vibrant world to explore. There are various engaging enemies to fight, various puzzles to solve, as well as bosses that keep you on your toes at all times. Now, as far as Kena Bridge of the Spirit goes, you get to play as Kena, who is a spirit guide, and where it is your job to heal those who are traumatized, because according to the Kena Bridge of the Spirit world, when one is traumatized, they will get into this realm that is in between the actual realm as well as the spirit realm, and you as Kena must rid of the corruption of the different individuals to help them to move on and basically be able to restore them and help them find healing. It is a game in which, in my opinion, not only is the gameplay really engaging, but also what I really love about Kena Bridge of the Spirits is the emotional aspects it brings. Because, like I said, where she helps the different characters to be able to find healing and breakthrough from their traumas, that is something that me personally can get easily touched by the different stories that the game brings, by learning about those different characters, empathizing with the different characters of their different struggles and whatnot, acknowledging that even if I'm dealing with depression, there's always a light out of the tunnel. So yeah, if you really love a game where there is this kind of cartoon-like vibe, and where you also love games that has a whole bunch of action and where it speaks to you in many different ways, definitely check out Kena Bridge of the Spirits on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Gris. In this game, you get to play as a young girl dealing with depression, which is illustrated by everything in the game, whether it is her dress, whether it is just a doom and gloom landscape. They all bring about this analogy of depression and sadness, obviously hence the name Gris. In case you don't know, Gris is Spanish for gray. But anyways, what I love about Gris is that you get to platform around and meet those different cute NPCs, as well as, even though there are enemies that you got to avoid, they are not the ones in which you have to do a whole bunch of technical skills in order to defeat them. No, you just avoid them, and if you do not manage to avoid them, you have to start over at the last checkpoint. There is no graphical bloodshed and whatnot. And what I really love about Gris is that as you go about and progress and solve those different puzzles to bring hope and healing for the girl, as well as breakthrough, as you do that as an analogy to assist the girl in receiving healing and cure, what happens is that it will bring the atmosphere to life, where the atmosphere used to be just gray and doom and gloom. It will become vibrant in colors, which will further illustrate that there is hope, and the girl receives hope and healing. So it is a game in which it is not just cozy, but I will say is that it also just brings about this emotional kind of feeling, this emotional sense of healing, and where it can speak to each and every one of you in many different ways. So yeah, if you really love these type of cozy platformer games in which the visuals are in sync with illustration about life, and where you love these type of games where you just bring about hope to the character and whatnot, and where that hope brings hope to you as well as somebody who potentially is dealing with no matter what kind of struggles in life, definitely check out Gris on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Celeste. In this game, you play as Madeline, who has insecurities and where she needs to find security and find healing, and in order to do that, she decides to go on this journey to hike to the peak of Celeste Mountain in order to heal herself. And little did she know, as she hike up Celeste Mountain, as you accompany her, you will get to meet interesting NPCs where they will teach her about life, whether it is for the good or for the bad. And whereas you get to accompany her, you also get to witness her experiencing breakthrough, where she gets to break from her cage of her negative inner self. It is a very emotional game where you get to platform up the mountain, and where you also get to learn more about Celeste and just cheer her on in her journey for self-discovery. But also, what I love about Celeste is that there are also various secret areas in the game where you get those secret items. So yeah, if you want a game that is really beautiful, as well as it has a beautiful soundtrack, and where it could be challenging at times, but also where the characters may potentially motivate you in order to become a better person, definitely check out Celeste on the Steam Deck. Alright friends, the number one game that I believe you all should check out that helps deal with depression, and that is none other than Persona 5 Royal. In Persona 5 Royal, you play as a high school protagonist codenamed Joker, who is wrongfully accused of special misconduct and sent to Shuten Academy for an entire school year due to probation. At the school, he gets to meet new friends, and suddenly they all witness a mysterious app being planted in their phones, which give them access to the metaverse, aka the cognitive realm of corrupt adults, where the friends must fight the shadows in there and quote-unquote steal their treasure, which forces a change of heart in which the individual will confess his or her crimes in real life. What I love about this game is that it is a perfect blend between turn-based RPG as well as high school simulation, because the thing about Persona 5 Royal is that even though a lot of it involves you going in those different dungeons where you fight those different shadows to cause a change of heart in those different corrupt adults, but also a lot of the game involves you being a high school student, going to school, studying, as well as taking those different tests where you're able to increase and rank up those different stats. And what I also really love about Persona 5 Royal is to spend time with your friends. It really teaches me and motivates me on how I can be a light to my friends, and how I can be somebody who can be a better leader in my circle of influence. And speaking of friends, since it is fundamental that everybody desires to have friends, desires to be loved and accepted, Persona 5 Royal really teach me the importance to have deep, close friends, and that is something that really speaks to me as somebody who grew up with not too many friends and often feel depressed by it. Persona 5 Royal brings about this type of healing and satisfaction and motivation for me to care about others and be happy and joyful that way. Before playing Persona 5 Royal, I know many of you are like me who do not like to look at gameplay and do not like to look at that because you're afraid of getting spoilers. I get it, but for this game, in order to be somebody who wants to experience the maximum amount of fun, you have to look online to see at least which specific characters you have to prioritize in building relationship in, because if you don't, then you will end up having the same exact ending to the original game that was released back in 2016. So that is just something that is worth noting. But anyways, if you are somebody who loves these JRPG games where there is a whole bunch of fighting, where there is also a whole bunch of great characters, as well as an amazing story where it brings about all these different life lessons that will speak to you in many different ways, and you also love games that have amazing soundtracks that bring about extra spice to the vibe of the game, definitely check out Persona 5 Royal on the Steam Deck. Alright friends, these are 10 great games that I would recommend any Steam Deck owner who is dealing with depression to check out. Let me know in the comment section below, what games do you play to ease your depression? And if you like these types of list videos where I recommend a whole bunch of games for you to check out, I have a whole playlist about all these different types of lists, from curated lists that have specific genres to general ones on the Steam Deck, so feel free to check that out if you are interested. And as always, if you love gaming lists, gaming reviews, gaming discussions, and everything related to the Steam Deck, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe so you'll not miss another video. I try to post Mondays and Fridays around 6 p.m. Pacific time, so stay tuned. Once again, my name is Joey for the Nomadic Gaming Guild, and game on!